Presidential Reconstruction begins in 1863 with the announcement of the 10% Plan. The President Abraham Lincoln is already thinking about the end of the war as early as 1863. Now the question is why? Well, does anybody remember what happened in 1863 that would allow Lincoln to think about the end of the war? Do you remember July of 1863? The battles of Gettysburg and Vicksburg are going to happen, and therefore it is basically a massive turning point of the war in the mind of a lot of people. Well, that's what's going to happen. Now, he's going to base his theory, or at least his authority over Reconstruction, over the fact that he's commander-in-chief of the military, and he's putting down a rebellion through military force. But you have to understand something about Lincoln. He's one of the most compassionate presidents we've ever had. He's very merciful when it comes to finishing this war. He just wants it over with. You have to remember, he really barely enjoyed a day of peace during his entire presidency. So he comes up with the 10% Plan. What is this? Well, 10% of the population was supposed to swear loyalty to the Union. And then they would basically be pardoned, and they would go and they would basically start setting up a new state government. That 10% of the voting population, what I mean by that is adult white males, are going to go and they're going to establish a new constitution. They're going to write up a constitution, and they're going to elect new leaders to that constitution. And then they're going to send those leaders to the Congress. They're going to send them to Washington, and when they're admitted, bam, you're going to be reconstructed. That's the 10% Plan in a nutshell. But you can imagine, when you think about it, that's really lenient, don't you think? I mean, think about it. We have a war that's costing anywhere between 625 to 250,000 people killed. And 10% are only going to be the ones that are establishing the peace. And what about treason trials? After all, we got a bunch of treason. There's not going to be any hangings or any sort of hearings over the fate of prominent Confederates like Jefferson Davis and Robert E. Lee. Shouldn't there be anything in there like that? That's just simply a matter of human nature, don't you think? Well, guess what? There wasn't. Lincoln is going to receive opposition in Congress, even from his own party. Some of those who opposed Lincoln vaguely thought he was just letting the South off way too easy. And they thought, a lot of them simply wanted to be part of the process of deciding how Reconstruction was going to be managed. To members of Congress, the Confederate States were conquered territories, and Congress had authority over the territories. Now, there's going to be people within Lincoln's party that are going to try to be, let's say, opponents of presidential Reconstruction. Most notably, the radical Republicans, Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner. Thaddeus Stevens was a Pennsylvania congressman who thought himself as a champion of the oppressed, of the people taken advantage. And he hated those that took advantage of defenseless people. What better population in the 1860s to hate when it comes to taking advantage of defenseless people than slave owners? So you can imagine, therefore, that his ideas about Reconstruction are going to be wildly different than Lincoln's. How about Charles Sumner, Massachusetts senator? He's got a beef with the South, does he not? Go back and listen to my lectures on the Civil War, particularly the coming of it, i.e. the caning of Sumner. He's got a beef with the South, don't you think? Remember, he's the one that got, basically, the heck beat out of him on the Senate floor by a Southern congressman. He's going to have a major beef with the Southern states. These two guys and a handful of others are going to be some of the most vocal critics and the vocal opponents of Lincoln's plan about Reconstruction within his own party. But as long as Lincoln is alive, he can basically maintain his control over Reconstruction. He is astute enough, he's smart enough to be able to navigate his way through the workings of his own party to get done what he wants to get done. But of course, that all remains and all relies upon the fact that he's alive. What happens if you remove him from the picture? Well, that's going to be subject in a couple of more videos.